The Porsche Club Championship is back for 2025 for the first round of the season here at Silverstone National. It's going to be a fun run over 7 weekends across the year. Of course, starting here at Silverstone, going to Anglesey, Brands Hatch, Oulton Park, returning to Silverstone in August, with Donington and Snetterton rounding out the season. It is a fitting place for us to start here, of course, at Silverstone. We're not running the Grand Prix layout though. We are, of course, running Silverstone National. Much shorter with the run down the Wellington Straight, taking us straight into Brooklands and the like. But obviously, we turn straight across over on the inside, basically down at turn 1. Of course, let's take a look at the starting grid for the first race of the season. As we'd expect, it's Jake McAleer and Mark McAleer starting from first and second position. Simon Clark and Chris Dyer starting from third and fourth. A lot of familiar names at the front of the field. Jim Bryan and Peter Morris in 5th and 6th, with Kevin Harrison and Julian Morris, with David Burke and Richard Baston starting at the rear end of that field. 11th position will be Pete Evans. That was obviously the top category. Behind that, it's Darren Labbott and then Oliver Chatton, which will be starting from 13th position overall. Shiraz Khan starting there from 14th position, with Marston and Richardson in 15th and 16th position, with Andrew and then Forber, Gregor and Williams inside the top 20. Only a few more left to go, with Brown, Porter, Rossiter, and then Gregor behind in basically the final row of the grid. One final driver left to go, which is Julian Dye. He'll be starting from 25th and last on the grid. Of course, if you've never joined us here in the Porsche Club Championship, there are 2 categories really to mainly focus on. Of course, we've got 997s and 996s in that top category, along with basically some Caymans as well. And then we get the Boxster Cup, all of the army of Boxsters behind all of that, which is where Darren Labbott is the one effectively on the pole position. But as we saw so many times last year, and in the farewell before as well, Jake McAleer and Mark McAleer starting first and second. Simon Clark there in the white, black and green car, I'm sure will be going on the attack as quick as possible to try and work their way through. But the 144 of Jake McAleer starting the season with a pole position. It was quite a dominant pole position as well. It was by half a second, basically, about just shy of half a second, about 4/10. 4.5 tenths of a second for Jake McAleer to have that pole position. But I'm sure Mark will be on the attack down into that first corner, as will Simon Clark, as will Chris Dyer. Although I will say Simon Clark, as we saw so many times last year, was really the only one that could properly take it to the 14 and the 144. And so I think we'll be aiming to do so very much again. The red lights are on for the first race of the season, and we are underway here at Silverstone with a great start from the front row as they battle their way down into the first corner. But look at that start from Simon Clark, straight through and battling to try and take over the race lead. What has happened to Jake McAleer in all of that? I thought it was actually a really good start for him, but clearly the second phase of that has not gone well for the 144. And has dropped right the way back. I thought he'd started all right, but clearly not. As they're coming through then the first corner, your race leader now is, of course, Simon Clark. There goes the 26 backwards. That's David Burke in one of the 2 Caymans that we've got out on the circuit, across Chris Dyer in the other one. But yeah, there we go. Very interesting. Simon Clark is your race leader as we battle our way down into Brooklands. It's Jake McAleer, the one that's gone missing from all this. Mark McAleer is in second position. You've got the 09 car there of Chris Dyer, the other Cayman out there on the grid. Of course, we saw the yellow one going backwards, and the other one is battling for the race lead. The 74 there of Jim Bryan in 4th position. As we can see on the sheets there on the left-hand side, it's Clark leading at the moment from McAleer as they're battling their way down into the first corner. I'm desperate to try and find out what has happened to Jake McAleer and where he's ended up on the field. Obviously dropping right the way down to 9th position at the moment is the 144 car, and you can see him there left-hand side in that silver, black and blue. I think the initial start was fine, but then maybe got a little bit too much wheel spin, maybe just a bit awkward in position and got mustered out. But obviously that had all happened before we'd even got down into the first corner. It's going to be a tough drive for Jake McAleer in the 144 to battle his way back up, but already making it 3 wide as they head their way down into Brooklands. almost brushing the rear end there of the 80, of the 22. Well, actually, that is just the 2 car rather of Pete Morris that was almost making contact with on the rear end. So yeah, terrible start there for Jake McAleer. And unfortunately has a lot of work to do. It's Julian Morris next up though, the one that he's looking down the inside in that green and black car as they work their way into the first corner. Pete Morris in the number 2, that red car, working its way up the order now into 6th position as they exit Copse and work their way down into Maggots and then through the right-hander and out onto the Wellington straight. Jake McAleer unable to work his way back into the mix. Got the 22 of Pete Evans as well directly behind, going out a little bit wide through the corner there out onto the Wellington straight. You can see the lead that Clark's got, absolutely flying at the front of this field as Jake McAleer once again looks to the inside as they work their way into Brooklands. Is that one going to work out in favour? Yes, I believe Jake McAleer actually cleared both cars in one go, so it would be the 85 of Richard Baston and of course the number 10 of Julian Morris, I believe cleared both of those in the move. And there you go, you can see them now dropping back behind. Of course, the number 10 of Julian Morris. It is the 85 in the black car of Baston. And here comes another look to the inside as the 144 there of Jake McAleer was trying to find his way through on Pete Morris, who's gone out wide through that first corner. And here we go, straight down the inside, nice and easy as they get into the braking zone at Maggots, firing it straight through. And there goes Jake McAleer up now already into 6th position. Big gap now up ahead, 2.7 seconds before he catches the rear end of the number 16 car of Kevin Harrison. So that's the next focus. You can see Harrison's trying to focus on maybe battling with Jim Bryan in the battle for 4th position. They're a little bit a ways off the back of Chris Dyer at the moment, who's currently holding on to 3rd. But I think Dyer is almost trying to attack the rear end of Mark McAleer, to be honest. Big lead though for Clark right at the front. The number 23 of Simon Clark is running away with things in this race, 1.8 seconds clear. However, the fastest lap has just come in from Mark McAleer. Side by side then between the number 10 of Julian Morris and Richard Baston. And I think Baston's still come out in front in all that in that black car. And it's actually been a really slow run through the opening corner from Julian Morris, and now is being hounded by the number 22 of Pete Evans. Of course, that's one of the 2 996s that we've got out on the circuit, being Evans. The other one is the number 16 of Kevin Harrison. That is another one of those Porsche 996s that's currently running up the order in 5th spot. 2 of those, the rest of them in that top category are either Caymans or 997s. And then the rest of the field, of course, the legendary Boxsters, of which the 52, Darren Lambert, from pole position still continues to lead in that category. This is the number 78, 2nd position. Whoa, that's a big old lock up there from the number 78 of Forber there, currently running in that 2nd position in category. You've got Marston directly behind. So any mistake now will leave the door wide open for any positions. But I think for Lambert, it's already quite a lead in that category. It's 2.3 seconds Lambert leads in the Boxster Cup. So Lambert leading over Forber, over Marston, over Shiraz Khan, and then the number 77 of Tom Andrew. Comfortable at the moment. The gap for the race lead though overall is coming down bit by bit. Mark McAleer closing its way just a touch in. You can see the count for fastest lap there on the tower on the left hand side. It's not to any of the top load though. It's of course Jake McAleer. There he is, straight to the outside as he's trying to work his way past a duo of cars. Of course, the first of which is the number 16 of Kevin Harrison, which he is able to get straight around the outside of Harrison and now up into 5th position. And then of course the 74 there of Jim Bryan, straight down the inside. There we go, 1 and 2, easy peasy. There goes Jake McAleer then straight up into 4th position. Did kind of make that look pretty easy actually. That was quite impressive from Jake McAleer. Obviously he has qualified on pole position, is realistically the fastest driver around the Silverstone National Circuit so far this weekend. And now he's going to try and pull comfortably clear. Of course, there's not long between race 1 and race 2 here for the Porsche Club Motorsport Championship, and they've got to be a little bit careful with when they ding and dong are out on the circuit. And someone who's probably not really thinking too much about that is Mark McAleer. Straight up to the rear end of Simon Clark. This is the battle for the race lead now, what we're seeing here. And Simon Clark, that gap has gone from 2 seconds to absolutely nothing in what feels like a heartbeat. 17 minutes, 40 seconds left to go. Look to the inside coming in from Mark McAleer. Big send down the inside at Copse, and that is the move complete. Mark McAleer back up into the race lead then. Simon Clark has to settle for second, and he looked so comfortable earlier on in the race. Any chances of Jake McAleer potentially closing in on this group? I wonder. Obviously, he has to get past the number 9 of Chris Dyer and also close down the 6-second gap. But if these two are going to battle over the next 17 minutes, you just never really know. That said, from this point on, I could see Mark McAleer checking out into the distance, never to be seen again in this race. I'm sure Clark will be doing everything in their power to make sure that that is not going to be the case. As it's easier said than done, isn't it? Simon Clark there just trying to hound the rear end of Mark McAleer. I think the important bit now for Simon Clark is remain close until they go through the Boxsters once again. That's the important bit. There's a look to the inside, just filling the mirrors and showing the intent. You could see in the background there the other the other silver, black and blue car of Jake McAleer is not too far behind and is going about half a second a lap faster than the top two. On the last lap complete was over a second faster than Dyer in third place. Jake McAleer is on a charge at the moment and will be battling for third position in the very near future, I am sure, as we head our way back up to Brooklands. And you can see in the background how close the fight is for first, how close the fight is as well for third. There's Jake McAleer looking to the inside as they head their way down into Brooklands, trying to make the move straight away. And I can see in the background just a little bit of a glimpse of him. It is Jake McAleer now up into third position with clear road ahead to try and catch Mark McAleer and Simon Clark. So we are definitely going to be seeing a battle, I'm sure, unfolding. There is confirmation of it. There is the 144 of Jake McAleer, and there is Dyer behind. So up to third position now. Sure, as much as Dyer is the highest placed Cayman, it's not going to be a podium overall in our top category here. And the number 9 has to then settle for fourth position. I don't think the 74 of Jim Bryan is going to be able to close his way in. There is the 22 backwards though. That's Pete Evans in the 996 car. That was running at the back end of the top 10, and unfortunately for them, spun round and left stationary basically at the final corner. And big shame there for Evans, who was again showing quite nicely in that battle. Already pulling a comfortable margin out in the fight for third position is Jake McAleer. There's a look to the inside a little bit further back down the order as the fight for the 74. Bryan, of course, leading from Harrison. And at the moment, Kevin Harrison just trying to find a way through. Obviously, probably got closest to finding a way through when Jake McAleer was knocking at the door trying to get past himself. And that was when there was the most confusion in this group, the biggest possibility of trying to make that move. But it seems like Jim Bryan is going to be able to keep Kevin Harrison at bay, just for now anyway. They do have Pete Morris, though, directly behind in that red car, so Pete Morris will be knocking at the door and might chuck himself into the mix as well. Obviously a comfortable margin back from them so they can just focus on each other. There is a fight between the 85 of Richard Baston and Julian Morris with the number 10, as we've seen so many times throughout the race thus far. They are fighting at the moment for 8th and 9th position at present. Gap for the race lead has gone out to over a second for the first time in the hands of Mark McAleer. Obviously Simon Clark was trying to stay close, but that gap has expanded somewhat, and Mark McAleer now leads with a comfortable margin. 1.2 seconds on the previous lap. He set a 1 minute 2.3 versus Jake McAleer's 1 minute 2 flat. That realistically, I don't think it's going to be fast enough for Jake McAleer to be able to close back up by the end of the 13-minute race. I mean, statistically on paper it is. But I just think realistically that pace isn't going to hold up, and he isn't going to be able to get past Simon Clark and close up to Mark McAleer at the front of the field in that time without some outward intervention. And by outward intervention, I mean back markers. They can certainly do it. To speak, by the way, very quickly of the boxers, it's still Darren Labbett leading in the boxers in the number 52. And of course, it is still Forber leading from Marston in 11th and 12th overall, which is second and third in the boxers. They're only separated, though, by about 0.8 of a second. So it is still quite close there in the battle towards the top of the boxers and the back end of the top 10 overall. As they cross the line, the gap gets a little bit larger for the race lead, but a little bit smaller for second to third. The gap's now just 3 seconds between Jake McAleer and Simon Clark, as we begin what is basically a waiting game now for the top two to close their way back in and actually bring on what will be quite a fight, I'm sure. Jake McAleer has already put on some good moves, especially on these two, to be honest, clearing both of them in one go. And I'm sure he'll be trying very much the same thing. By the way, yeah, I was literally about to say this. That's Labbett. That is Labbett there, I believe, who's had a bit of a moment. The 52 of Darren Labbett, the comfortable leader in the Boxster Cup. I wonder if there was a spin, because that car looks fine. The car's driving all right. It seems to be pulling away well. But I wonder if there was a spin heading out of... It feels like he was going too slow for it to have been out of Luffield. I'm not sure there for Darren Labbett, but either way, dropped back behind the number 66 there that belongs to Julian Dye. So, yeah, it's really not gone well there, unfortunately, for Darren Labbett. And the race lead has gone the way of the number 78, Richard Forber. So, basically just gifted it on a plate. At the moment was Forber, as there comes some battling up and down the inside. There is your race leader, and of course Forber wasn't that far clear of Marston, and you can see that there. Marston is quite close in the 55, so there could well be some quite intense battling now happening in this group for the race lead, unless of course this is the bit that Forber needed to pull a gap clear. Currently sits 1.3 seconds, which is basically an identical gap to that for the overall race lead, which again continues to be closed down on by Jake McAleer with 10 minutes and 20 seconds left to go. It is Forber leading. It is Marston in second place in the Porsche Cup. In the Porsche Cup, we're talking about Porsches. In the Boxster Cup, and then it is the number 69 there of Oliver Chatham, who currently sits in third position of the Boxsters. There's the 55 second placed car right now. Very bright. You could not miss that one, yellow and green, as it tries to battle for the race lead. I'm not sure at the moment. From what I'm seeing on the timesheets, it does seem as though Forber does have the pace over Marston. Although I will say, I think Marston's faster. Oh no, it's a tenth slower at the moment. It's Marston's fastest lap. It's not too bad. They're pretty similar on pace, but you just need to get some, a bit of luck, to be honest, through lap traffic would severely help. Right, let's talk about gaps up towards the top of the race. Mark McAleer leading by 1.4 seconds. That gap has definitely come down ever so slightly on this run through traffic. It's now 1 second flat, but the important bit is that gap to the 1.44. There is the number 42 going backwards. That is Williams, who's been for a bit of a spin. But yeah, as I was going to say, Jake McAleer is now knocking at the door. And there could be a potential battle here for the race lead. A three-way fight. That would be a cracking way to open the season at the moment. But Mark McAleer is trying to check out as they've gone through their next hurdle of traffic. Obviously, they are going to go back through it again at some point. Probably at a very awkward point for them in the race. A bit later, when everything's a bit tighter. So it's certainly not going to be easy from this point on. By the way, Labbett has held on a little bit and is now 15th overall, but 5th in class. So if you want to know where Darren Labbett ended up, behind Shiraz Khan at the moment in 5th position in that Boxster Cup. Did notice as well, Forber's got past the number 16 of Kevin Harrison. Wonder if Harrison's had a problem then, because you wouldn't suspect Harrison would have dropped back behind the number 78 of Richard Forber. But it does seem as though Forber's been able to work his way through and is now 9th overall rather than 10th overall, dealing with Marsden. As there is the closing down of Jake McAleer, knocking at the door of Simon Clark and looking for a move. Has been a bit aggressive with the move so far today. And there was a little bit of a look to the inside. Simon Clark was able to cover it off, but here comes a look to the outside from Jake McAleer. Can't quite get around there, goes for the up and under, but unable to make that one stick as the number 5 of Brian Richardson, obviously one of the Boxsters, drops a lap down on these two, as they're just trying to navigate as cleanly and as quickly as possible as they get past Tom Andrew as well. At the moment, that was 16th overall, or 14th overall rather, at the moment there, that they just managed to squeeze their way past. Good exit here from Jake McAleer. Is this the opportunity he was waiting for? Is this going to be enough? Looks to the outside. The defensive lines come in from Simon Clark as Jake McAleer was trying to go to the outside and then the inside, but alas, will stay behind. And every lap that goes by with him being unable to pass Simon Clark is another lap that he will not be able to catch Mark McAleer at the front of the field. 1.5 seconds clear at the moment here at Silverstone National. There's the look to the inside once more. It's covered off brilliantly by Simon Clark. There's a wily old fox out there at the moment. 6 minutes, 30 seconds left to go. Still plenty of time in the race. Plenty of opportunities left in the race. And to be fair, Jake McAleer will be well aware of that. Sat in the in 3rd position at the moment. Understands how these championships unfold. Understands how to win them. Understands how to win races. And that timing is everything. There comes a look to the inside. Speaking of timing, and going to be choosing now as the time to get through. Straight down the inside at Copse. Brilliant move on Simon Clark. Will this move be completed though? Yes, it will. Jake McAleer then up to 2nd position. Could this be an outstanding drive from pole position, dropping back into the middle of the field to a potential victory for Jake McAleer? One more target left to go. Mark McAleer up ahead, 2 seconds clear now as they'll head their way down towards Brooklands with 5 minutes and a bit left to go. Big slide though on the brakes there though from Jake McAleer, pushing the car on its absolute limit as he heads down into the braking zone at Brooklands, now into Luffield, leaving the door open a little bit there for Simon Clark to potentially look down the inside, but that one's not going to work, just courtesy of how things unfold around here. You can diamond off that corner. They say you drive it in quite hard and then you come back in for a later apex. Wow, one goes one way around the Boxster and the other one goes the other. That was sensational scenes as they were both trying to navigate the number 15 of Shiraz Khan, and I'm sure Khan has probably sat in the car thinking, what just happened? Why did he go that way? For Jake McAleer there, basically almost taking to the grass on his movement of the way past, trying to basically have a repeat of Mika Hakkinen versus Michael Schumacher in Spa all those years ago. It's not quite as good. There wasn't a move in that, but you know, you can chuck it into that mix. As Mark McAleer leading, Jake McAleer's closing in though. And that bit of lap traffic was a bit awkward for Mark McAleer. Obviously, it remains awkward for Jake McAleer as well in 2nd position. But it's certainly bringing that group together. I do believe Jake McAleer is 100% going to get a chance at victory in this race. There is going to be an opportunity out there. Where it's going to be, I don't know. But there is going to be an opportunity. There we go, navigating the back markers. We've got 3 for the race lead, all separated by just over a second. It's Mark McAleer leading from Jake McAleer, leading from Simon Clark. The pair of those, or the trio of those, comfortably clear of the number 9 car of Chris Dyer at the moment, who sits in 4th position, 10 seconds off of the race lead, only 3 seconds ahead of the number 74 though of Jim Bryan. So there might be a fight as well there later on for 4th position, but I'm not sure Jim Bryan will be desperate to try and work his way through into 4th. Of course, you want to win every single battle that you're in, but there comes a line on risk, and especially when, again, the next race isn't that far away. Realistically, when we're done with this race, the next race will be around 5:30 local time, but we've been running about 20 minutes early, so it could be around 5:15 here at Silverstone, and that really is not very far away. It's coming up to 3:15. So it's only 2 hours. So if you have an issue in this race, and I'm sure all the drivers are acutely aware of that, not only is it going to cost you a fair amount of money, but also you might not be able to get out for the second race of the day, as it is only 2 hours away. It's not like you get a nice day between races to try and sort out your car. You've kind of got to make it on the fly. Half a second now the race lead as the front row from the start of the race are about to do battle. Obviously it was Jake McAleer on pole position, Mark McAleer in that second position on the starting grid, but a poor start for Jake McAleer is what's given Mark McAleer the potential chance of winning this race. Will that chance be afforded? Will there be the opportunity left to go? 2 minutes and 20 seconds left to go. It's going to be close to 3 laps left to go, and I believe it will be 3 laps left to go at the line, but only by a handful of seconds. They come through the final corner at Woodcote and now out towards the line. They're running about 1 minute 1 second lap times. If they battle hard, they might not get that extra lap, but here we go then. Jake McAleer to the inside of Mark McAleer, and it is Jake McAleer out on top. He dropped right the way back from pole position and has finally found his way through to take over the race lead. The 144 has made the move, and it is Jake McAleer back out front here at Silverstone. Mark McAleer in behind, Simon Clark in behind that, with a big gap then left to the rest of the field. What a fantastic battle it is here at Silverstone. Of course, in the Box to Cup, it is still Forber leading at the moment in that in 10th position overall. But of course, the lead of the category after the issues for Darren Labbott. There was the look to the inside from Simon Clark, trying to work his way into the top 2. Maybe even back into the chance of victory. Got to say, big shout out to Simon Clark, who's actually kept up very nicely with, obviously less so with the top 2 because Mark McAleer was so clear of everyone. But Jake McAleer, who was able to keep up with and drag his way back into contention from the race. With that lap complete, by the way, it was completed on 23 minutes, 57 seconds, 0.1, meaning that as he crossed the line, there was 1 minute and 2 seconds, 0.8 left to go. His last lap time, 1 minute, 1 second, 0.8. So we're very close to this being the last lap of the race, or going for one more. It will come down to seconds rather than, a second and tenths of it rather than multiple seconds, and the potential of going for another lap being a little bit more secured. Bit more into the unknown as we head down towards Brooklands. Got to say, it's such a good drive for him to have dropped back and to have worked his way back up into this position. See if the marshals will prepare the checkered flag. Of course, if it is flown by a marshal, regardless of whether it's slightly short of the race, that will be the end of the race. Regardless, 10 seconds left to go. Watch the timer count down. Obviously, it looks like it might be the way of Jake McAleer crossing the line. I'm not seeing a checkered flag being displayed. We've got one more lap left to go, although I am seeing I did see a checkered flag on my timing sheet. No, there we go. It's been updated. As much that it hit 0 literally as Jake McAleer crossed the line. It's about as close as it gets. We do have one final lap at least to deal with, which for Simon Clark is joy. There is another potential to try and find your way past Mark McAleer, and more potential to work your way up the order, but at the moment it seems fairly settled, seems fairly calm. But this is Simon Clark's best opportunity. Got a couple of the boxers up ahead to try and navigate. Is there going to be an opportunity for the number 23 to work their way through in a second spot? I do not believe so. Looks like it's going to be a McAleer 1-2 here to open out the season. We've seen so many times here in the Porsche Club Motorsport Championship. Out through the final corner, it'll be Jake McAleer with an inspired drive to take victory here at Silverstone and open his account in the campaign of 2025. Jake McAleer across the line to take the checkered flag first. Then it's Mark McAleer, and then it's Simon Clark, the top 3. A top 3 we've seen so many times here, but that was a brilliant drive from Jake McAleer. You can tell he wanted that one as he's flying his way back up the order. Bit of a wait there across the line comes the Cayman of Chris Dyer. Bit of a wait as we will see the 74 then of Jim Bryan across the line. There's the pair of McAleers. The 144 ahead of the 14. Jake McAleer on top. Obviously in the Boxster Cup though, it was Forber taking victory in the 78, so Richard Forber was able to do it in the 78 car, ahead of Marston in the 55 and then Chatham in the 69. So again, solid drives there from those in that category, but of course the big shock in all that is Darren Labbett, who ended up finishing 6th position in category. And I'm sure we'll be very disappointed with that, because Darren Labbett was in such control in the Boxsters, but alas, it's not how it goes all the time, and sometimes when you get dropped back, you just got to muscle your way back into it in the afternoon's race a little bit later on. Here's the provisional race results then. Jake McAleer ahead of Mark McAleer at the front end of the field, with Simon Clark there in 3rd position. The number 9 of Chris Dyer in 4th position before we get the 74 of Brian. Then it is Pete Morris in 6th position. Baston in 7th before we get Julian Morris in 10th position, with Burke and Forber rounding out the top 10, but of course Forber being victorious in the Boxster Cup. The Caymans, the 996s and the 997s are all part of the same category. That is the champs they're involved in. Is the amateur or the Boxsters, which is where Forber has been victorious. Behind that, it's Marsden, then Chatham, then Shiraz Khan, then Andrew, then Labbett. That's such a disappointment for him to finish down in 15th position. The 56 there of Jason Brown, then Gregor, then Harrison, then Porter and Gregor. Of course, Harrison there not being one of the Boxsters, dropping back into them after a bit of an issue earlier on. Rossiter, Williams, Dye, and then the retirements from the race, Richardson and of course Evans earlier on in the race, about 9 laps in there unfortunately for Evans to retire from the race. Of course, fastest lap from your race leader, that was half a second faster by the way than everyone else, and his pole time was also half a second faster than everyone else, so a very impressive drive from Jake McAleer. Do remember though, we do have another race to deal with in the Porsches today. Of course, we've got the Porsche Club back at 17:35. We do also have the Boxster Cup back at 16:25. So still plenty of racing left to go, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you there in the near future. Until then though, bye bye.